All right, folks, we're joined now by our next guest, but we want to welcome in Dean Obeidallah with a video. Watch.
But what do our colleagues on the other side of the aisle say to this? They express great outrage at politicizing this matter. When I was leading troops in Iraq in 2006, men and women who were being shot at and blown up by al-Qaeda, where was the outrage as they fundraised endlessly off the Iraq war? Where was the outrage as they viciously attacked our commanders? Where was the outrage when they said that soldiers were war criminals? Where was the outrage when they said the war was lost? Where was the outrage when they said that only high school dropouts joined the Army? Forgive me if I don't join my Democratic colleagues in sharing in their fake outrage.
All right, folks, that is the next senator from the state of Arkansas, Congressman Tom Cotton, on the floor of the House, responding to Democratic accusations that the Republicans are fundraising on the backs of the Benghazi hearings, and everything he said is, of course, in my view, absolutely true. Joining us now to talk about what he says is how Republicans have twisted Benghazi is Dean Obeidallah, and of course he is a columnist at the Daily Beast. You know him from television, and he's also a lawyer and a comedian. Hello, Dean.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome back. All right, so you just heard Congressman Cotton. You could weigh in on that, and/or how you believe Republicans are constantly twisting Benghazi around.
Sure. First of all, I wouldn't stake a claim that Tom Cotton's going to be the next senator. That's going to be a tough race. But in any event, we'll see if that happens. To me, honestly, and I'm going to try not to be partisan, because as I was on last time, I told you I'm more of a progressive than I am a Democrat, and I try to be as objective as I can. I think, honestly, after the attack, a short time afterwards, Republicans and Democrats completely best intentions in trying to find out what happened that night on September 11, 2012. How did they get killed, the 4 Americans? Were there errors? Why didn't the military get there in time? And how could we prevent certain tragedies like this happening again in the future? So I think everyone had the best intentions. There was some politics involved, of course, as Washington, D.C. But that has changed now. And I think this new call for hearings, to me, is purely partisan. And what I get upset about, I don't want to use the term outrage like Congressman Cotton saying all Democrats are using, that I get disgusted, frankly, when I hear Republicans invoke the names of the 4 brave Americans killed on that night to have a hearing now, or to say we need more truth about the attacks. We don't. Neither one is true now. It's a political investigation, which they have the right to do, about whether the White House was forthcoming or not about emails and about communications. That's a fine hearing. But don't bring up the 4 Americans or the fact we don't know the facts of the attack, because we do. There's been 2 reports. We can talk about them if you want. A Senate bipartisan report, over 85 pages, and a House Republican-dominated House Armed Services Committee report, over 30 pages, very detailed. I took the time to read them. They were painful to read at times. But everything is in there about.
Well, but everything's not in there. We want to know. I want to know, and I know that Trey Gowdy wants to know. For instance, where was the president that night? Do Americans have a right to know when we're under terrorist attack where the president was? Why did Hillary Clinton? Why did Susan Rice go on TV and lie and say that it was a response to a video? Why has the White House withheld information, still withholding emails? Why did it take a FOIA request from Judicial Watch to get that email that Jay Carney so pitifully said is not about Benghazi? Why did Hillary Clinton's State Department deny repeatedly the enhanced security to the ambassador who wound up being killed? Why were we still there? Wait, why were we still there when the Red Cross left, when every other embassy took their flags down and left? Why did Hillary Clinton look at the parents when the coffins came home, the flag-draped coffins, and say to them, we're going to get the guy who made the video? I mean, you want more questions that have to be answered? I got a million.
You do, and a lot of them have been frankly answered already.
Really? Well, give me one of those. Answer one of those.
I encourage, first of all, President Obama.
No. Answer one of those. You just said a lot of them have been answered. Give me one and answer it.
Where was President Obama on the attacks? I just looked at a picture online, which Media Matters showed, of him in the situation, in the Oval Office on the night of the attacks, which I think is ridiculous, because no one's going to say that President Obama didn't care about the attacks, because the
president the next day went on a fundraiser across the country. We had a terrorist attack and 4 dead Americans, including an act of war, when an ambassador is killed, and he flew to a fundraiser 3,000 miles away. He was not in a situation room where he belonged.
On September 12th, he was in the Rose Garden, called an act of terror. On September 13th, he did go to a fundraiser 2 days later in Las Vegas. That's true. 2 days later, not the next day. Okay. And again, I'm not being partisan. I'm telling, these are the facts.
The fact is, Dean, he was not in the situation room where he belonged.
Where was he? What does it? So are you actually? So I'm trying to get the sense here. Are you inferring that the president wanted Ambassador Stevens, Sean Smith, Tyrone Woods, and Glenn Doherty to be killed because it would help?
That's as ridiculous. That's as ridiculous a question as I've ever heard in my life.
That's so but my point in that, Stephen, I'm not actually saying you're saying that. My point in that question is, don't you think the president would have wanted to prevent these attacks and not have a loss of American lives at any time, especially 2 months before a tight re-election?
I think the whole scenario of the video was created because the president had just gotten finished telling us there was no more terror threat. Al-Qaeda was gone, and now we had a huge, massive terror attack because we denied our people security, and they lied about it, and they instructed Susan Rice to lie about it, and this needs to be found out.
Steve, you know that Ambassador Stevens twice denied requests for extra security. In fact, General Ham called him a month before, in August of 2012, and said, do you want more security? And Ambassador Stevens said no. And he said he didn't give him a reason. I think the reason was he wanted to use the local militia and build up the infrastructure there. We'll never know the answer to that question. Unfortunately, Ambassador Stevens is dead. So it was denied twice by Ambassador Stevens himself, and that's a fact. And again, go to the Daily Beast, look at my articles I have the links for the reports, and I encourage people, take a few minutes, just read the conclusions. It's 80 pages and 30 pages, it's long. Read the conclusions of the reports, and you'll get a sense. We know what happened in the months leading up to the attack, and here's the truth, and I'm being completely nonpartisan. Both reports say the State Department failed. Hillary Clinton will have to answer for the Benghazi attacks in 2016 when she runs for president. There's no escaping that. No one can say she's not going to answer. She will have to answer, make a case to the American public that she did the best she could, knowing all the facts they knew, and the American people will vote yes or no. I mean, they'll choose by who they vote for if it's true or not. So I'm not, and Democrats aren't saying Hillary Clinton is absolved of any liability for this. Politically speaking, she's going to have to answer for it, Stephen. There's no doubt about that. Why these extra hearings? And that's where I think, and the fundraising, even Trey Gowdy, the chairman, said we shouldn't fundraise off that. Senator Pat Toomey said today, the Republican senator said we shouldn't be fundraising off this. You're tarnishing what could be a more impartial investigation.
All right, well, first of all, I think Tom Cotton was very eloquent, and he was correct when he talked about how this is always done, how they did it, how John Kerry called our troops terrorists in Iraq, how John Kerry said that told the high school students, if you don't do well and stay in school, you'll wind up in Iraq. Yeah, I mean, the Democrats have been reprehensible. I want to move on to another topic.
I agree with you. Those are bad words, but we're living in today's world. But you know what? I've changed my view slightly on this hearing because of Charles Krauthammer, a man I usually don't agree with, but he was on Megyn Kelly's show last night, and he said, you know what? I'm worried about these hearings because things are going great for us as Republicans. He said we've got the win.
Well, I'm not worried about it because anytime you want to get to the truth.
It's unknown. We don't know how it's going to play out. Not that there'll be new facts. There'll be no new facts.
Well, I want to see John Kerry called. I want to see Susan Rice called. I want to see Rhodes called. I want to see Hillary called. I want to see them all called. And let them. Yeah, I know Hillary did a great job. What difference does it make? Let's see her do it again. All right, now, well, we really don't have time here to get into the next issue, and the next issue is the 9/11 Museum. So I'm going to ask you now if you'll come back next week, and we'll talk about the 9/11 Museum. And the bottom line is that there's a 13 to 12-minute documentary that's presented at one exhibit, which tells the story of who did the terrorist act. I wish it would say Islamic terrorists. I'm told it doesn't even say Islamic terrorists, yet you still have an objection to it. So we'll talk about that when you come back next week, so we're setting the stage here, all right?
I'd love to talk about it next week, and I'd love to see the video. So if you know someone at the museum, they've stonewalled the media completely on this, and it's not being transparent when $300,000 of taxpayer dollars are being used to fund that. And that's part of my objections. That I can't even see the video to tell you if anything's offensive.
Well, none of us can see the video yet until it opens.
The interfaith panel did, and the people with the most objections were the Christian leaders on the interfaith panel, who I interviewed for my article a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't even a Muslim cleric. I mean, he was upset with.
Well, you know what? Does it? I mean, it depends who the Christian leaders are. Like it would depend to me who the Jewish leaders are and who the Muslim leaders are. Just because they're of a denomination doesn't mean that they're automatic. I would agree with them. Let's put it that way. Hey, well, Dean, we'll have you next week. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Dean Obeidallah, ladies and gentlemen. Read him at the Daily Beast, and we're coming back with Ari Fleischer, a two-parter, one on sports and one on Benghazi. Don't go away.